How many times?
I only remember twice.
And whereabouts, what did he do there?
They had meetings, but it was the two of them in the meeting, so I was not a part of the meeting, but I saw him because I went to greet him.
And whereabouts, in what room were the meetings held?
So the way the house is structured, there's a upstairs, because when I said it was underground, they questioned me. So let me not say it was underground, it was a downstairs. So all of us, we stay upstairs, and when you go down with the steps, there's a room that is under, which Malusi used as his study or meeting room. Yeah, so AJ was there.
And did Mr. Gigaba tell you what he was meeting AJ Gupta about?
I think that time there was some project at ASCOM. It was called Egusile Project. I think that project was giving Malusi a lot of sleepless nights. And then he said, no, AJ was here to give him, they were discussing ASCOM, Egusile, but he didn't give me all the details about it.
So what ESCOM project was giving Mr. Gigaba sleepless nights?
I only remember Egusile Project.
Sorry?
I only remember Egusile Project.
Then you go on to deal with meetings with Mr. Gigaba's staff. Was there a time where his staff visited your home?
It was a ministerial staff. So there's a staff of the department and there's a ministerial staff. So ministerial staff, it's people that he travels with wherever he is, either he goes to Cape Town and he comes back, then there's a department. But most of the time, if it's a ministerial staff, maybe one person will come from the department maybe to brief them if we are traveling on the States. Maybe sometimes it will be the DG, or they will choose whoever is relevant to the trip. So he will come and brief the entire ministerial team.
Right,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mape, can I go back to paragraph 29? Did it ever happen that Mr. Gigaba told you that he and Mr. Gupta, Ajay Gupta, were discussing any projects at Transnet?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So they used to talk about maybe renewing contracts. Maybe AJ will ask Malusi, no, there's a project needs to be renewed, or maybe someone needs to sign in certain projects, but I don't know exactly who needs to sign it, but they will talk about it.
Okay. Mr. Maybe.
Thank you. Now, you go on at paragraph, or in 30 and 30.1, you deal with a trip to Mumbai and New Delhi. And what we identified during our consultation, you'll remember, is that there's an error. This is another area where there's an error in the affidavit. Because it says at 30.1, during the last period of Mr. Gigaba's tenure as Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, now that would have been in late 2010. You go on to talk about a trip in 2010 to India. In what year did that trip actually occur?
I said to people who were leading, because you were not there, to people who were leading this part, I said to them, I don't want to say exactly which year because I don't have my passport with me. I remember there was a trip to India, but I don't remember exactly when was it. And then when the affidavit came, it was written this year, and I even mentioned to Sakile that I don't want to be accountable for the year exactly, but I remember we went to India, to Mumbai.
So we know from Mr. Gigaba's affidavit that he says it happened in 2015. Do you accept that now?
If you say so.
Okay. So
Because I don't have my passport. Because after, on that day, we were talking about this, I said to the commission team, I will go check my passport at home. So what I've done, on my way when I was leaving, where we had the meeting with the commission team, I called his former PA. Then I asked her about my passport, the state passport, because we don't keep those passports with us. And then, because I wanted to know exactly when did we go, then she said she's going to come back to me. By the time I arrived at home, because my passport was there before I left, because I wanted to remember certain trips because we were traveling a lot, because I had 2 separate passports. I have the normal passport, then we have the diplomat passport. So when I got home on that day, after calling his PA, my passport was not there, and my 2 kids' passport was stolen.
all right, so this is a part of your affidavit that I understand you would want to correct
Yes.
in a supplementary affidavit, because it may very well be that the change of the date then has a knock-on effect, as these things often do. But presently, can you remember what happened in India? What was the purpose of this trip?
I don't remember exactly, but what I heard, what Malus was talking about, they were talking about to meet some, what is it, the Gupta family members, some people who working, who's gonna assist in working in the Mumbai trip, because there was an airline that they used to talk about when he was at DPE. So there were people need to come working the permits. So most of the time they will talk about the permits of some Gupta family. So I don't know how that was facilitated, because I remember when Malus was saying it's not easy for him to go to India when it's not a state trip, because everyone will question. So then I don't know how it ended up, it was a state trip.
All right. And in India, who did you travel with? Who did Mr. Gigaba travel with?
With his stuff,
Would that have included Mr. Masomi?
yes.
And you say that they attended various meetings. I didn't see with whom they met, as I was out shopping when they attended the meetings. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you deal with the Johannesburg-Mumbai flight route. What happened there?
What I know about it, it's when you were still at DPE, they used to talk about the Mumbai route, that I think it was South African airline that they need to cancel, and the another route from Mumbai need to take over. So they used to have a lot of discussion about that. That's the only thing I remember.
Just whilst we're on this issue of a supplementary affidavit, as I understand it, because it has been shared with me, Mr. Ngatobi, your counsel, actually prepared a draft supplementary affidavit, didn't he?
Okay.
After our consultation on the 8th of April, was it?
Okay.
And this was, you would have seen, was one of the paragraphs that's addressed in that. Can
Okay.
you confirm that?
Chairperson, if I may,
Okay.
I would like to, I have had this discussion earlier. We have concerns about affidavits that the clients say have to be specific to her. She must have read them, and she has made it clear that she will not give any evidence on drafts that she has not particularly commissioned. And therefore, I request that the issue on the draft affidavit not be let with.
Well, I think Mr. Mybeck is, all Mr. Mybeck is trying to do is to check whether this is one of the affidavits which are going to be the subject of corrections in a supplementary
Yes.
affidavit. Yes. Yes. So I think Mr. Mybeck wanted to be fair so that we know that we mustn't take this affidavit, this paragraph, as not subject to correction.
Chairperson, if I understood correctly, and maybe I did not,
Yeah.
what Mr. Mybeck is suggesting to the witness is that there's a draft supplementary affidavit that he's in possession of, which he says corrects some of the issues that are being dealt with. And what I have indicated, even prior to the sitting with Mr. Mybeck, is that the draft affidavit, which he has been furnished with, is but a drop according to the witnesses. The witness has been clear. Nothing should be discussed in the commission until I have personally commissioned an affidavit. To do so would be premature because whatever draft supplementary affidavit that is before him and not before this commission is not going to be discussed now.
Mr. Mybeck hasn't responded to you, but I have a very good sense that he wasn't saying that because he wants to hold the witness to whatever is in the draft affidavit. I don't think he wanted to I think that's what you may be concerned with.
Chairperson, maybe he can clarify it because that is a concern for us.
I don't think Mr. Mybeck wants to say later on, I saw that affidavit, this is what it was saying, or anything like that. No, I don't think. Mr. Mybeck, talk for yourself.
No, absolutely, DCJ. I mean, the simple point, I'm not suggesting that the witness is bound by any affidavit, and of course she can say what she wants to. But the simple point is that during the consultation on the 8th of April, it was identified that there was a problem with this paragraph. I alerted Mr. Ngatobi to that, and as I understand it, he set about working on a draft affidavit.
Yes.
The reason that I highlight that is there's no point in me then taking this witness through every single line of all these paragraphs because they need to be amended.
There's a problem, yeah.
Yes.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah.
Please do.
I think what my lawyer is trying to highlight, because if we corrected this, because I raised these issues before even Malusi was given my affidavit. And when Malusi had my affidavit, was given my affidavit, on their response on my affidavit, they went for those areas and they gave him an upper hand, like it looks like I was lying.
Okay.
A certain nature didn't happen.
Okay.
But if the commission had listened while we were consulting, because I raised those issues, because I think some of the things when they wrote them, they didn't put it in my words. And now when Malusi's lawyers and himself responded to them, now they are just questioning most of all those areas because they know it didn't happen like that, because in the trip happened, that the fact remains. But now the only part is the year or what happened. So now they're twisting the words because they know it's not exactly like that. But if we have addressed those issues before, we won't be faced by this. And also, I will be comfortable to answer this question. And hence, I said, I didn't come to give my evidence the time when I was supposed to come, because I didn't want to say things because they are written. And then one day, someone will hold me accountable. They said, I said this and I didn't say it. So, because I think the way it's written, things are twisted, and what they highlighted, all of them, which is the affidavit of Soma, I saw it, I saw Siyabonga Gama, I saw Malusi's. What they highlight more is the errors that are made, but it doesn't change the fact of the things, but it's how things are put. It's wrong.
No, that's fine. I think Mr. Mybeck is saying, because he's aware that you did raise issues with this paragraph, and he thinks the supplementary affidavit that corrects this might affect certain other paragraphs that follow, he would rather not take you through them, because he's aware of that. That's what he wanted. He was trying to convey.
Okay.
Mr. Mybeck.
Yes, thank you. Then, Ms. Gigaba, at page 106, there's a heading, prior knowledge of appointments in state-owned enterprises. Now, you deal at paragraph 31.1 with a New Age breakfast, and that Mr. Gigaba then informed you of something after one of those breakfasts. What did he tell you?
Can you please repeat the question?
Paragraph 31.1.
Yes.
You say after one of the New Age breakfasts, Mr. Gigaba then told you something. What did he tell you?
About the TNA breakfast.
Yes.
The only thing I know, it's him and AJ, they used to discuss who sits on which table. Yeah, that's what I know about them.
Okay. So the heading to this section is prior knowledge of appointments of state-owned enterprises. Was there a time when Mr. Gigaba would tell you, well, Mr. So-and-so is going to move here, and then that would happen? That's what this section deals with.
Yes.
Were there occasions where he said X is going to happen, and then it did happen?
Yes.
Can you remember those instances? Who was he talking about?
I remember when you say Brian Damis would leave at ESCOM, then Brian Molefe will go to ESCOM. So I knew that before it happened, and it happened.
Okay, so he said to you that Brian Molefe would go to ESCOM?
Yes.
And I think you've mentioned
I think
that
even Gama also, I knew before we even, yeah, I knew before they were even appointed.
So he told you.
Maybe let's take one at a time so
Yes,
it's clear.
certainly.
Let's talk about Mr. Brian Molefe. You say that after one of the New Age breakfast sessions, Mr. Gigaba told you that Mr. Brian Molefe was going to be moved from Transnet to Eskom Holdings Stock Limited, and you say he told you this before Mr. Molefe was officially appointed to Eskom.
Yes.
He told you that the Guptas wanted Mr. Molefe at Eskom and not Mr. Brian Damis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't put a date here. Do you have some recollection of which year it may have been?
No, I don't remember. What I know, he was the minister of DPE at that time.
He was minister at DPE
Yes.
at that time.
Yes.
Now,
And it was during the time where they used to host a lot of TNA breakfast meeting on SABC2.
I'm sorry, just repeat that, please.
I'm saying it was around the time they used to host a lot of TNA meetings at SABC2, Morning Live in the morning.
Yes, okay. Now, Miss Lynn Brown was giving evidence last week, and she said she was appointed as Minister of Public Enterprises at some stage in 2014. So I think it would have been after the general elections of 2014. So if you say that Mr. Gigaba told you this while he was still Minister of Public Enterprises, it would mean that he told you this either at some stage during the first half of 2014 or earlier.
Yes.
Would you say that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Is there a chance you might be mistaken about that?
I don't remember exactly which time it
Yes,
was.
but he was still Minister of Public Enterprises, you
Yes.
say? Okay, all right. Mr. Mybeck?
Thank you. So that deals with Mr. Molefe. Did Mr. Gigaba ever mention anything to you about Mr. Gama?
Yes, I remember.
What did he tell you?
I think there was a time he had a position at ESCOM, not at ESCOM, sorry about that, at Transnet, and then he left. But when he was appointed again, so I don't know which sector he was moving from to another sector, then he told me that Gama will be appointed as a CEO.
You appointed as the CEO.
Yes.
I didn't hear the earlier part, the first part of what you're saying. Were you saying that you are not sure Where
Because what I know, Siabonga was already at Transnet. So
Yes.
when he was appointed as CEO, he was not arriving as a new person.
He was not coming from outside.
Yes, because I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Siabonga Kama was CEO of a division of Transnet at some stage, TFR, and he was dismissed in June 2010, and he was reinstated in February, or the settlement agreement was in February 2011. He started or resumed duties in that position of CEO of TFR, namely a division of Transnet, I think in April 2011. And then later on, when Mr. Brian Molefe was seconded to ESCOM in 2015, April, Mr. Kama was made acting group CEO of Transnet.
Of Transnet.
And then I think later on he was appointed. So that's
Yes,
what the
I only
commission
remember
said.
that last part of him because
The
I was not
last
familiar
part.
with him 2011 and 2010.
Yes, okay. So you heard that he was going to be appointed as Chief Executive Officer of
Yes.
Transnet in 2015,
Yes.
or you are not sure when it was?
Yeah, it was because during the time, Balusi was
Was he still Minister
he was
at that
he was a
time?
DPE.
He was still Minister of Public Enterprises
Yes.
when he told you about Mr. Gama
Yes.
being in line to be appointed as CEO of Transnet.
Yes.
Okay, and you don't think you are mistaken about the fact that he was
I'm not
DPE
sure
at
exactly
the
about
time?
the year. Yes.
You are not sure whether he was still at DPE at that time, that is Mr. Gigaba, when he told you. Could it be that he was no longer Minister of DPE at the time?
He was.
He was.
Yes.
Okay. all right.
Because we went in Cape Town to attend some function. It was an ESCOM function.
Yeah.
But the Gama was not there, but Brian Molefe was there. So,
Okay.
and I remember Malus was still the Minister of
Public Enterprises.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Mr.
it just,
Mafe?
I don't remember exactly about the years.
Okay.
And
no, that's fine.
I said that to the commission that I'm not
Yeah.
sure about the years because I was not keep on track of everything that he was doing.
No, that's fine.
See, Ms. Gigaba, perhaps to be of some assistance to you, this is another issue that we looked at during our consultation. Because as the chairperson has pointed out to you, in 2011, Mr. Gama was reinstated as the chief executive of Transnet Freight Rail. And that was at a time when Mr. Gigaba was the DPE minister. He was then, in 2015, made the group chief executive of Transnet, by which time Mr. Gigaba was no longer the DPE minister. And as I recall, you talked about being put back into a position. Do you remember that?
Because what happened is, that's the reason I said I don't want to put times on certain issues. What I wanted to highlight is like every time when something will happen, he will say it before. So he will come and say it. And when I was giving my consultation, I said, I don't want to put exact times with what he was talking about. What I wanted to highlight is like each and all of them, when they were appointed, we knew before because he will tell me about it maybe 2 to 3 months before that so-and-so will go to this one or this one will move. Some, he'll be sad about it. Some, because there's nothing he can do. So it was those kind of topics. So I knew that Mr. Kama will be brought back to the position. It's just like I don't know when. But I knew also about Brian, that Brian will move to ESCOM before he was appointed to go.
Would you have made a distinction
Yes.
between being told that Mr. Gama was going to be made or appointed as CEO of TFR, which was a division of Transnet, or being told that he was going to be appointed as CEO of Transnet. In your mind, would you have been able to make that distinction?
I think maybe the mistake is there, because I don't remember exactly what what position he was holding, but I know that at some point, when Malusi was at DPE, Siabonga was in a position that he was appointed to. And because he said that at home. Then
Manda.
I said, what I don't know, because I was not keeping in tracks of their movements.
Yeah.
Because I was not tracking this one is doing this and this. But I knew that at some point, because if I remember correctly, when Siabonga was appointed in that position, there was like little bits of a noise. I think it was in the media about him moving and he needs to come back. So, and then Siabonga, Mashangu and Malus, they had some discussion at home talking about it, that Siabonga must come back.
Now, you have talked about Mr. Gama coming back or something like this, an appointment.
Because I don't know his position properly.
Yes.
Because I've never done that research.
Yes, you see, he was dismissed at the end of June 2010 from his position as CEO of TFR, not of Transnet.
That's
Then
what I don't know.
He was fighting his dismissal.
Yes.
And then there were negotiations for a settlement. The negotiations happened when Mr. Gigaba was
still
Minister
DP.
of Public Enterprises.
Yes, I remember that.
And as a result of those negotiations, a settlement agreement was reached, in terms of which he was allowed back. He was reinstated.
Yes,
But
that's
he
what
was
I'm
not-
talking about.
When he was reinstated, he was going back to his earlier position
Yes.
of CEO of TFR.
Yes, that's
He
what I was
not
talking
being
about.
made CEO of Transnet.
Yes, that's what
You
I was
talk
talking
about the first one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because that time, I remember Malus was at DPE.
Okay, all right. But did you say they held a meeting at your home, Mr. Gigaba, Mr. Mahlangu, and Mr. Gama at some stage?
No, Gama has never been at my home,
Oh.
but we were like, they were like friends of some sort, because
All
at some
three of
point
them?
we attended the wedding, I think his daughter's wedding, and also they were close.
The three of them?
Yeah, they were close.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember Malusi would talk, we'll have that kind of discussion with Siabonga, Mahlangu. They will discuss how they need to assist Siabonga Gama to come back, because there was some dismissal that happened. So I remember that, those discussions, just like I was not part of them, but I remember that.
But were those discussions, were they taking place in your presence, or you were hearing from Mr. Gigaba that such discussions had taken place?
It was him and Tammy Msom, they were talking.
Yes,
Yes, but Gama was not in the meeting.
not in a meeting.
Yes.
They were talking on the phone.
No, it was a meeting. It was Tamim Somi and Malusi, they were talking about that.
Oh.
And then later, Malusi was telling me, because I think he didn't like how Siabonga Gama was dismissed, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Mr. Maitek?
Thank you. At paragraph 31.3, you also say something about Mr. Gama.
Yes.
Can you deal with that, please?
Can you please say that again?
So, was there, how, do you know how Gugu Gigaba came to be employed at Transnet?
I have a little knowledge about it. What I know is when Gugu told Malusi that at SAPI, they want him to take the package because he was forever sick. And then Malusi was like, no, he must take the package and move to Joburg. He will talk to Siabonga to find him a position there. So then he came, he stayed with us, I think, for a few months. Then after that, he went to work at Transnet.
I'm sorry. Just repeat that answer. I missed some things.
Okay. So what I know, Kuku was working in KZN at SAPI, but just because he was often very sick at work, so SAPI offered her the boarding package. So Malosi said, no, she must take it and she must move to Joburg to stay with us. So which she came to stay with us. And he explained to me that his sister is coming to stay with us, but he will speak to Gama to find him a job at Transnet. Then once he found a job, he will leave our home and find a place to stay. And that happened.
Okay. Mr. Mybeck?
Thank you. Then, Ms. Gigaba, there's a heading, tensions rising. You see that?
Yes.
Now, whilst Mr. Gigaba was the minister of the DPE, was there a time when you felt that the Guptas were putting pressure on him, or that he mentioned that to you?
He mentioned that to me.
And what did he say?
There were times where Balisi will have his own diary from his department, and then while he's sitting at home, maybe he will say, AJ is calling him, he needs to go, or he will have to leave the department. So he will come at home, he was like, no, let's go to Sexin, they want to see me. But it came to a time where he didn't want to do it. He says they put pressure on him because he has his own diary that he runs it with his PA. So now when they do these random calls, so now he needs to cancel certain meetings and then he had to rush to Sexin. So he was not happy with that. And also remember, he was really not happy with when there were a lot of arguments and pressure on Monwabisi Kalawa to leave SAA because Balusi thought he was good as a CEO. And also, I remember that he liked Mr. Dameset Ascom. He said he was a good guy, he was working. So, but the Guptas didn't like them. So there were a lot of discussion about them. So sometimes he will not take their calls when they're calling. And I was like, no, why are you not taking their calls? He was like, they always put pressure on me. They want me to run my work the way they want. And now I want to run the department the way I want.
So was there a time where you discussed this with Mr. Gigaba? The pressure that you say was being put on him?
Yeah, a lot of times because it will, most of the calls, they will make him feel so uncomfortable. It's either when maybe he talks to Dumieni, maybe they're discussing SAA, and then after that he will talk to me because he was not okay, because I think it was more of he wanted me to give him support. And also, there are certain people that he really enjoyed to work with them. And then he felt Guptas, they also want to change things around, and he was comfortable with those people.
So was there ever a time in that context that you suggested to Mr. Gigaba that he might stop using these advisors?
Can you please repeat that?
Did you say in the middle of paragraph 32, when I asked Mr. Gigaba why he did not stop using the Guptas as his advisor, what did he tell you then?
Oh, I asked him that because I felt like, because these people are stressing you, so why don't you just cut communication with them? So he said he can't.
And what did he say in response?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
Was there a time, have a look at paragraph 33, when the relationship between Mr. Gigaba and the Guptas appeared to be strained?
Yes.
And when was that? Can you remember?
Firstly, I noticed every time when they will talk about dummies, Malusi didn't like those. And also, I remember when they were talking about Monob's Kalawa, he really didn't like Monobisi to be removed. And I remember the other time it was more when they talk about, because his calls into Dumieni, in the beginning they used to be very friendly. Then later, when he was at DPE, they used to argue a lot about the board and the decisions of the board, and also how SAA is operating. So Malusi was very uncomfortable how, I think he felt like Dudu was just in everything. He wanted to be hands-on where he's not supposed to be hands-on. So it was more of that most of the time.
Now, did Mr. Gigaba often receive calls from Mr. AJ Gupta?
Yeah, sometimes AJ will call him. Sometimes he will take the call, sometimes he won't take his calls.
And why? What would cause him not to take the calls?
I think it was in the later stage where he will avoid his calls because he knew that he will tell him something that is going to upset him, or he will tell him something about a certain individual that need to be moved. Because every time when there's someone AJ wants him to be appointed, he will just put pressure on him, and Malusi would hate that. So, and at some point, sometimes he will, then he will ignore his calls.
And what would happen if he ignored the Gupta's calls?
I only remember one instance where AJ said, Malusi must remember why he was appointed as a minister of PBE.
What did Ms. Ajay Gupta say?
He said he needed to remember why he was appointed as a minister of DPE.
As a minister of public enterprises. Did you say this in your presence, or did you hear from Mr. Gigaba that is what?
Malusi told me.
He told you?
Yes, but I was there when he was talking to him on the phone, but also he told me.
Oh, okay. Mr. Mike?
Yes, thank you. I just want to take you through paragraph 33 and tell me if there's parts of it that are wrong. It says, during early 2014, Mr. Gigaba's relationship with the Guptas began to appear strained. The Guptas wanted Mr. Gigaba to get rid of Mr. Damas as the Chief Executive Officer of Eskom because Mr. Damas was not doing what the Guptas wanted him to do for them at Eskom. However, Mr. Gigaba did not agree with the Gupta's instruction. Mr. Gigaba then started avoiding telephone calls from the Guptas. When Mr. Gigaba ignored the phone calls, the Guptas would send Mr. Masami to speak to him, and Mr. Gigaba would then agree to meet with them. Mr. AJ Gupta would regularly call Mr. Gigaba and demand that he attend the Gupta residence to meet certain people. This upset Mr. Gigaba because he would have to cancel his planned official appointments in order to do so. Mr. Gigaba also told me that AJ Gupta told him that if he wanted to run the DPE as he wished, he would be moved back to the Department of Home Affairs. I understand that Mr. AJ Gupta would often tell Mr. Gigaba that he should remember why he was appointed at the DPE.
Yes.
Is that correct, or is there something wrong with this paragraph? Is there anything wrong with it?
There's nothing wrong.
All right. Then you go on to deal with Mr. Gigaba's relationship with Dudu Mnyeni. Now, was there a time where Mr. Gigaba had a close working relationship with Ms. Mnyeni?
Yes.
When was that?
I think when he was appointed in the beginning at DPE, they were close. They were like a sister and a brother, although they were colleagues as well.
Paragraph 34 goes on to read that Ms. Mnyeni facilitated our honeymoon trip to Mauritius. What do you mean by that?
So let me say pre-honeymoon, because it was not the exact honeymoon. and I raised that on the consultation.
Yes. So this was a trip to Mauritius, if I understand correctly what you're saying,
Yes,
that you took shortly before you got married.
yes.
Okay. And when you say Miss Mnyeni facilitated the trip, what do you mean by that?
So he arranged the whole trip for us. Then he booked for us to go to Mauritius. We went to meet her at the Sheraton Hotel. Then she sent us the whole itinerary about traveling. And I remember when we were in Mauritius, we were stuck because I think Omalus was not so familiar with traveling by himself. So when we were there, we didn't know where to pick up the car, what happened. So we're calling her when we were there because she's the one who arranged the trip. So he did the trip because he said he wanted him to go to rest. Because while we were arranging my wedding, Malusi was not part of the wedding arrangements because he was working. And if I remember properly, that time Malusi was head of elections, so he was forever out with the door-to-door doing the whole preparations of the elections. And also it was the time we were preparing for our wedding.
So who paid for this trip to Mauritius?
Did you pay for it? Malusi told me that he paid for it. But what I remember, she's the one who gave us the whole itinerary, our flights, and when we get there, where we must sleep, who must we call, who need to pick us up at the airport, and everything.
Now, can you remember where Mr. Gigaba would typically meet with Miss Mnyeni?
At Sheraton Hotel in Pretoria.
All right.
But sometimes she would come at home.
Sorry?
But sometimes she would come at our home.
She'd come to your home.
Yeah.
And was there a time then where their relationship soured?
Yes.
How did that come about? Why?
They used to, it started, because they started as, they have a sisterly and a brotherly relationship and also as colleagues. But then it became sour when Dudu used to tell Malusi that you need to do certain this or a certain thing. And Malusi will be like, he doesn't want to tell her the kind of job that he needs to do. And also, I remember on the Monabisi and Kalawa saga, Dudu didn't like Monabisi and Malusi did. And also Malusi was not happy when Dudu was interfering with the board decision things. So he would call her and say like, why she's always involved in things. And I remember they will have like a lot of arguments. Then Dudu will be like, Malusi will go back he will be taken back to Home Affairs. And Malusi is like, no one will take me back to Home. So they will just fight about that. And Malusi, or sometimes he will come and say, the president said you need to do this. And then Malusi was like, President, if you want to tell me something, he will come to me. He mustn't go to you and tell me something to do. So they had that kind of a relationship where it became, they didn't want to meet, because I remember there was a certain time where Malusi didn't want to talk to her anymore, but it was more of how she runs SAA. Malusi felt like he was not supposed to be appointed as a chairperson of SAA. He felt like he didn't know how to do the job. Sometimes she interferes. So they had that kind of a strained relationship. But in the beginning, they were very close.
And you say at paragraph 37, well, let me ask you, did Mr. Gigaba ever mention anything to you about the SAA Johannesburg Mumbai flight route?
Yes.
Was that an issue that was causing concern?
It was their topic, because I think Manus was not interested in this thing of Mumbai route. SAA to be cancelled, but it was reduced thing, and then he will say they will discuss it with Malus, and every time when they talk about that, Malus will be very angry, like why she's telling her what to do, why she's interfering, because sometimes he will just switch off the phone and he will tell me like, I don't know why she was just appointed. So every time Malus used to question why he was holding a position of being a chairperson, because he felt like he was just interfering everywhere.
Chairperson, I have a request that we take a short comfort break. I see that it is just gone 9 o'clock.
Well, you have been standing the whole day.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
No, I'm fine.
You
Yes.
are fine.
I'm keen, I'm sure like everyone, to finish
Okay.
this evidence.